G'day folks. Well, over the years we have filmed hundreds of incredibly talented people across the world. Many of these artists have gone on to produce their own videos as well. We hope you enjoy this great lesson from one of our Colour in Your Life artists.
G'day everyone. I'm Tricia Reust and I'm going to be discussing and demonstrating glazing, which is a beautiful technique in art. It's used to manipulate colour, and you place a thin veil of colour and you can repeat those veils for as long as you want. There are three reasons that we glaze. The first is to intensify colour. Then we use the same colour, and over here I have an example here where the vertical strong collage elements had to be balanced. So over here I have glazed the same colour, red gold, until it's intense enough to balance that strong vertical and tonal movement of the collage. The second reason we glaze is to grey a colour down. Then we use the complementary colour. In this example here, this orange area around the gold collage used to be quite strong, but I didn't want it that strong, so I glazed with a blue. So it's still orange, but it is greyed down. The third reason that we glaze is to change a colour. So for example, here in this blue area, I have glazed a yellow strip to create a green. You can glaze with all media, but just for this particular video, I'm going to just use pastel and acrylic. In this pastel here, which you see upside down, this strong area of tree needs to be balanced down on the base of the dry creek bed. It's not enough with this one just to put the same colour over it. It needs to be louder. So I want to increase the pigment of the terracotta. So I'm going to pick a colour in the same family, that is next to each other on the colour wheel. So I've got a red and I've got a bright orange. To glaze with the pastel, you just run those colours over the top, so you can see how vivid the pigment is becoming with that red over top of the terracotta. And over here we'll put a glaze of the orange. So running a veil of colour over the terracotta, and you can see immediately how the increase in the pigment is going to eventually balance the strong verticals of the tree. So if I want to change a colour, it's also very easy with pastel. These greens back here, if I want to change the colour green, I would just use blues or yellows. But if I want to change the colour to a completely different colour, I just glaze over and you can see I've changed that colour. Glazing is a beautiful technique because you still see the underlying journey in the art. Now to grey a colour down in pastel, I'm just going to pick up this portrait. So when I begin a portrait, to place the areas of expression and changing of tone in the flesh, I like to put the pink down. So I've got the pink across the cheeks, the forehead, the nose, the chin and ears. And to make them behave, opposite pink on the colour wheel is a green. So I take soft greens. It's a soft pink, so I take soft green and I just layer and glaze So you should be able to see the difference between these pinks that are glazed with the green and these loud pinks. We still have the beautiful modulation of the pinks and the flesh under there, but just by picking up that lovely green, you can see how greyed the flesh area is in comparison to the flesh that has not been greyed down with the colour opposite on the colour wheel. I'm just going to put these down now and we'll get into using acrylic paint for glazing. Acrylic paint has the pigment, a binder and an acrylic resin, which makes the paint usable. To use a medium to make the paint flow, we use clear painting medium. We don't use water because water, when it spreads the paint, it attacks and breaks up everything in there. When we use our clear painting medium, it suspends the pigment, so we maintain the integrity of the pigment. To create a glaze, you need to use your Taklon flats. When you think about what the object is, and that's to create a thin veil of colour, we want something that's going to be smooth and it's going to give us a really lovely even coverage. So we place our colour on our palette. Now you're in charge of how intense or thin that glaze is. So you don't make an all over glaze. You put a little of your medium on top of the colour, and then you're in charge of whether you want a beautiful thin glaze or a heavier glaze. So you don't mix it all in, you stay in charge of that. Now I'm just going to show you some on this canvas here. So if I want to intensify this orange here, I'll use a colour in the same family to make it lighter. So that's orange. The colours that are in the same family are next to each other. I can use a pink to make it a deeper orange, so that's quinacridone magenta. The thing about making glazes with our paint is we must keep our brushes clean. If you have even a small taint of another colour on your brush, you will affect the whole colour. Now I just want a really lovely thin glaze here, and I can make that orange a deeper orange, but it is still orange. So you can see the difference. This is the original colour, this is with the yellow, it's a hotter orange, this is with the magenta, and it's a deeper orange. To change the colour, you just pick the colour. If I want a deep green through here, I will layer the glazes. You use transparent colour so that you do not lose anything that you've already placed in your painting. And you can tell a transparent colour. This circle here is an empty circle, so that's transparent. Other manufacturers will have similar symbols, or you can just read on the tube, and it will give you the information as to whether that is a transparent colour or not. Now this is phthalo turquoise, and we will gradually get to a green by going over the orange with layers of this as a glaze, and you can't continue glazing while the underglaze is wet. You have to wait for that underglaze to dry before you continue to put more glazes over it. So this is going to be a layer of trees behind the road there. So I'll just put a little more yellow through here. And that's even more obvious what it does to an orange. And that's a transparent yellow. So we want to intensify the colour. We can make it hotter or deeper. That's another one. And we're going to start to continue to glaze the blue and then yellow, blue, yellow, until that's a deep green through there. So that's intensifying a colour and greying a colour down. Now if I wanted to grey this down so it's not so intense there, you need to have a glaze that is almost non-existent. See the variety of intensity there? That's a really deep glaze. This is a beautiful thin glaze. If I want to keep the orange there but I just want to grey it down, then I just have a really, really thin glaze that creates a grey over that. So you should be able to see the difference between this greyed orange here and the original orange there. One thing that's really beautiful about glazing in acrylic is you can change the whole complexity of a painting by creating an all-over large glaze. So this painting here has several areas that aren't quite together yet. The disparate planes of the landscape are obvious, but this beautiful collaged orchid, dried orchid, we want it to become more obvious, but we don't want to destroy the delicacy of the colour. The colour's just right. So what we need to do is we need to punch up the blues in the background so that lovely delicacy there becomes more apparent. So to create a large glaze in acrylic, it's easier to do it with a sponge roller. So we get, I think I'm going to use a phthalo blue to really punch up the whole area around the edge of this painting. So this is phthalo blue. Once again, it is a transparent colour. And we place the paint in a line. We put our clear painting medium over the top, and we just keep working and working with the roller until we have an all over even glaze that is not going to come out on the canvas in splotches. It's going to be beautiful and even. So you can see that that's a lovely sticky, it's covered all the roller. So we just take that and we run it all the way around the outside. And while it's still wet, now I've got that all around the edge. We get some paper towel and we're just going to diffuse the edges so that they soften, because we don't. So we put some clear painting medium on our paper towel, and we just work from the outside in. So we've got that really softened. See how softened the edges are? See how this is a straight edge? We need to soften that. And then once we've done the edges, we just soften the whole glaze. So that we don't have any really apparent interruptions in that veil of colour. We want a veil of colour. So you can see how placing that glaze, suddenly our orchid becomes more apparent, and it's only because we've heightened the contrast between the subtlety of the orchid with a stronger glaze, and that all over glaze around the edge of the painting has just brought the painting together, has not covered up any areas of the painting, because it's a glaze with a transparent colour that heightens that whole area but doesn't cover what's underneath. So hopefully you've become excited about glazing. It's remember to wait for each layer of glaze to dry before you put another colour on. There's no limit to the number of colours that you can continue to glaze over your work, in pastel as well as in acrylic, and of course in oil, but of course with oil the time is longer. If you're inspired to do that, that's great. If you want to learn more, I have topics on glazing in my videos. I have 3 videos available from Pulsar Productions, an Australian company. One is on using drawings in mixed media, one is on drawing techniques, and one is on texture techniques. And thank you to John Cochran Advertising for today, as well as for those videos. I also have a book available, and it's also available as an ebook, and my book has theory and demonstrations and techniques, a whole section of progressions, and a whole section on different techniques, and I do cover a little bit of glazing in that as well. So thank you very much, and I hope I've inspired you to continue on with your art journey.